Okay, so you know how it is, right? Like scrolling through social media or chatting with friends or even just that little voice in your head, it's like this constant barrage of shoulds and oughts, like you should eat this or you ought to believe that. And
Mm,
it's like we're bombarded with these things all the time and we even like throw them out ourselves without really even thinking
we
twice.
do.
But like, have you ever actually stopped and like really drilled down into it? Like ask yourself, okay, wait, why do I believe that this is right or wrong?
That's the question, isn't it? It's a big one
It is a big one.
because we often just sort of operate on autopilot with these moral instincts,
Yeah.
without truly understanding the values that are driving them. And that's what this whole deep dive is going to be about.
That's exactly it. We're going deep on this idea of getting normative clarity.
Right.
Like imagine it's this way to kind of like sharpen your ethical thinking so that your beliefs aren't just like gut reactions, but actually things that you can explain like clearly and in a way that makes sense and that you hold yourself to like consistently.
Yeah,
So the sources that we have for this deep dive, they get us some really interesting perspectives on this,
they do.
looking at both the theory behind it,
Hmm.
but also like this really practical approach called street epistemology, which I'm kind of excited to get into
Yeah,
because it seems like something that we can actually like use in our daily lives to really figure this stuff out.
definitely.
So if you've ever kind of felt like a little unsure about like the basis of your own moral views, or struggled to really talk about them effectively, I think you're really going to get a lot out of this.
Absolutely, because what we're doing here is essentially going on a journey to become more well-informed about our own values.
Yes.
Like, we're going to be exploring two main avenues from the material that we've got.
Okay.
First, we're going to delve into the theoretical ideas,
Yeah.
those underlying concepts, and then look at the practical steps that we can take to develop this normative clarity.
Okay.
And then we'll look at how street epistemology can actually be a tool to put this all into practice,
Uh-huh.
through questioning and reflection.
I like it.
Yeah, it's going to good.
All right, so our mission in this deep dive is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We want to equip you with a better understanding of how to express, examine, and refine your own ethical viewpoints. So we're kind of aiming for those moments where things click,
Yeah.
That sort of shortcut to feeling more secure and thoughtful in what you believe.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so let's just start by unpacking this term. Like, what does normative clarity actually mean?
Well, at its core, it's about having ethical claims and values that are clearly expressed so you can communicate them to other people,
Right.
that are logically consistent so you're not contradicting yourself,
Yeah.
and that are open to examination by reason.
Okay.
You're not just saying, because I said so.
Right.
So it's really about bringing precision to the language that we use when we talk about morals. And, you think about these everyday moral commands that we use all the time, these shoulds, oughts, musts.
Yeah, we do.
Normative clarity means we've really thought about what those words actually mean.
Uh-huh.
Like, in a specific situation, what are the values they point to? And how consistently do we apply them across different situations?
So it's not just about declaring something as wrong, but being able to explain why it's wrong in a way that makes sense and, like you said, holds up when someone pushes back on it.
Exactly.
Now, our sources touch on some pretty big philosophical concepts here, but they actually seem pretty relevant to our everyday lives.
We do.
One of them is this idea of reflective equilibrium, which sounds super academic. But the way I kind of understand it, it's almost like tuning a musical instrument.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It is often associated with John Rawls.
Okay.
And he described this process of going back and forth between our specific moral intuitions,
Okay.
like our gut feeling about what's right or wrong.
In a specific situation.
Yeah, exactly. And our more general ethical principles.
Got it.
So you might have a strong reaction to something, but then you compare that reaction to a broader principle that you believe in.
Right.
And if there's a conflict, you might need to adjust either your reaction or the principle to make them fit together.
Right.
So the goal is to have a balanced and coherent set of beliefs where things don't contradict each other.
Uh-huh.
Like, think about how often we react emotionally to a news headline.
Oh, yeah.
This process encourages us to take that initial feeling
Yeah.
and compare it not just to a general principle, but also to other values that we hold dear.
Okay.
And you might find that that initial outrage, which can be valid,
Totally.
needs to be tempered when we consider it, alongside our commitment to due process, for example.
Oh, that's a really good example.
Yeah. So that's where the real insight is in that process of going back and forth between our gut reactions and these broader principles.
Yeah, navigating that tension.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me see if I got this right. Like, say I have a strong feeling that lying is always wrong.
Okay.
But then I think about a situation where a lie could actually save someone's life.
Right.
So that creates that tension you're talking about. And reflective equilibrium is about working through that to get to a place where my beliefs are more consistent.
Absolutely. That's it.
Okay, great. I think I'm getting it now.
Good.
Okay, so then there's R.M. Hare and his work on the language of morals.
Right.
And it seems like that's all about being really careful with the words that we use.
Yeah, absolutely. And he argued that for ethical discussions to be meaningful, our language has to be clear.
Right.
And it has to be consistent.
Okay.
So when we use words like should, they're very powerful.
Yeah.
And his work suggests that if we examine them closely, we can uncover hidden assumptions or maybe some ambiguity in the claims that we're making.
Okay.
So if we're not clear about what we mean by should in different situations, our ethical reasoning can get really messy.
Hey, we're just a bunch of farmers here.
Right.
Having some fun. Come join us.
Yeah, exactly.
In our cow-filled world.
Yeah. Hit that subscribe button.
I love it. So, like, if should means one thing when we're talking about, like, table manners.
Right.
But something totally different when we're talking about, like, human rights.
Exactly.
Then we're just setting ourselves up for confusion.
Yeah, big time. And, one thing to consider here is that while Hare really focused on the logic of moral language, some people argue that emotions also play a big role.
Of course.
In our moral decision-making.
Totally.
So it might be even more complex than just the words themselves.
Yeah, it's never simple, is it?
Nope.
Okay, so our source also mentions this idea of systematic moral reflection.
Right.
And they talk about thinkers like James Rachel's.
Yeah.
What's the main point there?
So systematic moral reflection is all about actively engaging with our values.
Okay.
And the reasons that we give for our moral statements. So it's not enough to just have feelings about what's right and wrong.
Right.
We have to actually use our brains
to
examine why we believe those things. And this means being willing to question even the things that we've believed for a long time.
Yeah.
And to look for inconsistencies in our own thinking.
Okay.
So it's about building a stronger base for our beliefs through reason and honesty.
So being really honest with ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this theoretical foundation, this idea of finding that balance between our gut feelings and broader principles, being precise with our language and actively questioning our values.
Yep.
But how do we actually do this? Like, how can someone listening actually put this into practice?
Right. So our source outlines a few concrete steps.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is to actively identify your underlying values.
Okay.
So this takes some real honesty. Ask yourself why you hold a specific moral view. What is the fundamental belief that's driving that view?
Okay.
So, for example, if you believe that we should always strive for fairness, is that rooted in equality? Is it about justice? Or is it something else entirely?
So really getting down to that core value.
Exactly. It's crucial.
All right, what's next?
So then it's that critical analysis of the language that you use that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Pay really close attention to the words.
Right.
So when you say someone should do something, what's the justification for that? What principles or values are you implying?
Okay.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion
I like that.
to get to the core meaning.
To that juicy center.
Right.
Okay. And once we identify our values and analyze our language, what do we do then?
So then comes engaging in that reflective equilibrium process.
Okay.
So consciously compare your reactions to specific situations, to those broader principles.
Right.
Do they line up? Where do you notice conflicts or tension?
Okay.
That comparison is so important for refining your beliefs over time.
And it's not just an internal thing, is it? Like, we should be talking about this stuff with other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Dialogue is key.
Okay.
Talking with people who hold different views can be really challenging.
Oh, for sure.
But it can also expose you to new ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And it can challenge your assumptions.
And our source even says that thoughtful critique from others can actually show us inconsistencies that we might not have noticed ourselves.
Yeah, it's like getting a fresh pair of eyes on your reasoning.
Like someone proofreading your essay.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like this whole thing is not like a one-time thing, but an ongoing process.
Right. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's more like a journey.
A journey.
So as you have new experiences, you learn new things, you talk to more people, you might realize you need to reevaluate some of your views.
It's like constantly evolving.
It is, and that's a good thing.
I think so too.
So we've looked at these really interesting ideas about how we can analyze our beliefs.
Right.
But now let's look at a practical method that can help us actually do this work in our everyday conversations.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's called Street Epistemology.
Okay, so we've looked at the theory. We've looked at some practical steps. Now let's get into this tool that can really help with this whole process.
Exactly.
Street Epistemology.
That's a good one.
So for those of us who haven't heard of it before, what is it?
So basically, it's a conversational approach
Okay.
that uses these Socratic-style questions to explore the reasons behind someone's beliefs.
Okay.
And while it's often used for things like factual beliefs or religious beliefs,
Yeah.
the principles are really relevant to moral beliefs as well.
So it can apply to pretty much anything we believe in.
It can.
Okay.
And it's all about gently and respectfully probing why someone holds a particular viewpoint.
So not trying to like win an argument or anything?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about encouraging self-reflection.
So helping them understand their own belief better.
Yeah, and maybe helping you understand it better too.
I like that.
And that's where it's really powerful in terms of achieving normative clarity.
Okay, how so?
Well, our source highlights several ways.
Okay.
One is questioning assumptions.
Yeah.
So, for example, someone might say, it's wrong to lie.
Okay.
A street epistemology approach wouldn't be to immediately disagree, but to ask, okay, what makes lying wrong in your view?
Right.
Or how confident are you in that belief? What experiences have led you to that conclusion?
So you're opening up the why without being like confrontational about it.
Yeah.
Shining a light on those hidden foundations.
I like that a lot,
Of those beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And our source also talks about how street epistemology can foster this reflective dialogue.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, the method really emphasizes respect.
Okay.
And not being confrontational.
Right.
And that creates an environment where people can actually think deeply. Because when someone feels attacked, they're not going to want to reflect. But when the conversation is approached with curiosity and a focus on understanding, it can really help people reconsider their views.
So it's very different from like a heated debate where everyone's just trying to win.
Right.
And no one's actually listening.
Nobody's changing their mind.
Exactly. And the source also mentions that street epistemology can help us uncover what they call implicit norms.
Right.
What are those?
So implicit norms are these unspoken rules or assumptions
Okay.
that guide our judgments without us even realizing it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so street epistemology can bring these to the surface by asking why.
Right.
So, for example, someone might believe in a certain social custom,
Okay.
but they've never really thought about the moral reasoning behind it. So by asking why, you can uncover those assumptions and then evaluate whether they're actually valid.
So you're becoming more aware of all the factors that are influencing your judgments.
Precisely.
So that's pretty cool, uncovering these like silent rules that are operating in the background.
It is, yeah. And it can also help us identify inconsistencies in our own beliefs.
Oh, right, because we might hold beliefs that seem reasonable on their own, but actually conflict with each other.
Exactly.
And this method can help us see that.
It can, because that systematic questioning can expose those inconsistencies.
Okay.
So by examining the reasons behind your different beliefs, you might realize they can't all be true at the same time. And that can then motivate you to try to make your beliefs more consistent.
Right, to get them all in harmony.
Exactly.
And it sounds like engaging with this kind of questioning also encourages a certain amount of humility.
It does.
Right.
Yeah, because a core idea in street epistemology is acknowledging that none of us have all the answers.
Right.
And that makes us more open to learning.
Of course.
And potentially changing our minds.
So how can someone use these questioning techniques on themselves?
That's a great question. What if you could challenge what you believe and come out stronger?
Ooh, interesting.
Start now at navigatingbeliefs.com.
Yeah, like if someone's listening and they want to start incorporating this stuff, what are some practical ways to do it?
Well, our source has a few suggestions.
Okay.
One is to actually seek out opportunities to have these Socratic dialogues with people. And it doesn't have to be formal.
Right.
You could just be more thoughtful conversations with friends or family.
Okay.
where you're really focusing on understanding the why behind the belief,
Yeah.
both theirs and yours.
Like a little mini ethics club.
Yeah. And then afterwards, take some time to reflect on your own.
Yeah.
What did you learn? What questions came up? How might this change your own views?
That self-reflection piece seems really important.
It is. It comes up again and again.
Yeah, it really does.
And our source also recommends keeping a journal or taking notes,
Okay.
because that can help you spot patterns or inconsistencies or areas where you need more clarity.
So it's like creating a map of your own ethical journey.
Exactly, a roadmap.
All right. So to recap, we've really gone deep on this idea of normative clarity.
We have.
We've talked about what it means, the philosophy behind it, and the steps we can take to actually develop it. And we've also explored this method called street epistemology.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it really is. And it seems like it can help us question assumptions, reflect more deeply, uncover those hidden rules, and promote consistency in our beliefs.
Yeah, and also foster that intellectual humility, which is so important.
It is. And, we've seen that this whole process of examining and refining our ethical perspectives,
Yeah.
it's not just some abstract philosophical thing.
Though it's not.
It's actually really important for understanding ourselves and engaging with the world in a more thoughtful way.
Absolutely.
Have you ever felt frustrated?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're trying to explain why you believe something's right,
All the time.
but you just can't find the words.
Yeah,
Well, this deep dive can give you the tools to do that more clearly and confidently.
they can.
And hopefully for everyone listening, this has been like a shortcut
Yeah,
to becoming more grounded in your own values.
that's the goal.
So now that you've thought about this whole process of developing normative clarity and questioning your assumptions, what's one should in your life that you're now curious to examine more closely?
Yeah.
And what might you learn by simply asking why?
It's a great question to ponder.
It is something to think about.